The camera glides through a luxury airport lounge where soft jazz hums beneath the clinking of champagne glasses. Everyone moves with the quiet confidence of wealth, except one man who doesn't belong, yet carries himself as if he owns the terminal. He steps forward, flashing a sleek, glossy VIP black card with the ease of a seasoned millionaire. The moment the scanner touches it, a piercing red light flashes. A heavy silence follows. Passengers stare, attendants freeze, and he forces a shaky smile. "Sir, this card doesn't exist in our system," the host whispers. Before anyone reacts, tension thickens like smoke in the air. Instantly, the scene cuts to a high-intensity montage. A furious captain storming down the jet bridge, flight attendants whispering urgently, an air marshal rising from his seat with calculated suspicion, and passengers raising their phones to record. The narrator's voice slices through the tension. He didn't just sneak into first class. He faked an entire life. And today, at 38,000 feet, that life finally collapsed. The montage ends on a freeze frame of his anxious face. For months, he had become a familiar mystery inside airports across the country, a man who moved with the calm arrogance of old money. His tailored suits, polished shoes, and quiet nods toward airline staff convinced everyone he was a powerful investor or tech founder. He always appeared in the right lounges at the right time, carrying himself like someone born into wealth. No one ever questioned him, because nobody questions someone who looks like they're used to being obeyed. The truth, however, was darker and painfully unglamorous. He had no wealth, no business empire, and no VIP status. He had only an extraordinary ability to act, to deceive, and to shape-shift into whatever the luxurious world expected him to be. He mastered the psychology of premium travel confidence over credentials, posture over proof. He built a flawless identity that fooled gate agents, security officers, and even a billionaire who once shared a flight with him. But on the day of his exposure, everything changed. A single slip of the tongue, a moment of arrogance, a tiny inconsistency. And suddenly his carefully constructed world began to fracture. What started as a harmless fantasy spiraled into a fraud so bold that an airline, a billionaire, and an air marshal found themselves pulled into his deception. As the aircraft door closed and the engines roared to life, he had no idea this would be the last time he ever sat in first class. From the outside, he looked like the kind of man who owned entire airport terminals. The polished shoes, the pressed Italian suit, and the gleaming designer watch all screamed old money. Yet behind that flawless exterior lived a man who had never stepped foot inside luxury until he forced his way in. His name, at least the one he used most, was Daniel Reeves. But no one knew his real name. No one knew his real story. That secrecy was intentional. Daniel's suit was borrowed, the watch a shockingly accurate replica, the shoes aggressively polished to hide their age. Daniel wasn't playing dress-up. He was performing survival. He understood something most people never learn. Confidence, when worn loudly enough, becomes a passport. People rarely question someone who acts like their presence is expected. Daniel took this truth and turned it into an art form. His first deception was simple, studying airport behavior until he memorized it like scripture. He learned which lounges scanned cards strictly and which relied on the traveler's attitude. He observed staff rotations, rush hours, delay patterns, and moments when agents were overwhelmed. These tiny, invisible windows became openings for him to slip through. Over time, he realized that access to first class wasn't always about money. It was about seeming like you belonged. Daniel practiced walking like a man accustomed to private jets. He perfected the bored, irritated facial expression of frequent flyers who've spent years circling the globe. The first time he entered a VIP lounge illegally, his heart hammered in his chest. But no one looked twice. A staff member even offered him a drink. In that instant, Daniel tasted a powerful new drug, the privilege of being believed. He didn't sleep that night. He replayed the scene, studying why it worked. He realized no one stopped him because everyone assumed someone else had verified him. Airports thrive on appearances, and Daniel mastered those appearances. His tricks evolved. Fake boarding pass templates, believable CEO-style conversations, and backstories sprinkled with just enough truth to feel authentic. Soon, he was flying first class routinely without ever paying a cent. Within months, Daniel had eaten in elite lounges, showered in spa suites, boarded early through priority lanes, and collected luxuries he once only saw in magazines. Passengers knew him as that rich guy who travels constantly. Staff labeled him VIP regular Mr. Reeves, and Daniel, drunk on validation, began believing his own performance. Confidence, true or false, became the armor that made him untouchable. But the universe always catches up. One Tuesday morning, Daniel saw an unattended upgrade list at a busy gate. Chaos surged around delayed travelers. He seized the moment, walked up and said, "I was just upgraded seat 1A. The agent, overwhelmed, didn't question him. She smiled, thanked him for his patience, and handed him a first-class welcome kit. Daniel felt invincible, until seat 1B filled with a billionaire. Leonard Hartley wasn't just rich. He was a global titan, a philanthropist, investor, and founder of a multi-billion-dollar empire. He rarely spoke on flights, preferring silence. But something about Daniel intrigued him. Maybe it was the over-polished shoes. Maybe the too-perfect watch, or maybe the forced confidence. Hartley leaned over casually and asked, "Which fund are you investing in this quarter?" Daniel froze. He had fooled agents, managers, even pilots. But never a billionaire who had built his empire on reading people. Still, he smiled and answered, "AI infrastructure." Quiet sector. Hartley didn't react, but his eyes sharpened. "What's the name of the company?" he asked. Daniel invented one on the spot. Hartley nodded slowly, masking suspicion behind a polite expression. Minutes later, Hartley texted his assistant, "Look up this company. Verify the founder." Daniel continued enjoying his unpaid first-class meal, unaware that his entire identity was being investigated mid-flight. 40 minutes later, Hartley received the reply. "No registration, no filings, no website. Doesn't exist." Hartley's suspicion turned into certainty. From that moment, Hartley watched Daniel like a puzzle. The suit wasn't tailored to him. The watch was too flawless to be real. The shoes showed signs of cheap manufacturing. Hartley leaned over once more. "How much equity did you retain after the last fundraising round?" Daniel's heartbeat exploded. His vague answer confirmed everything. Hartley didn't need a confession. He already had proof. What Daniel didn't know was that Hartley spoke to the crew quietly. The air marshal was alerted. Crew members checked the system and found no record of Daniel ever being upgraded. His empire of deception collapsed mid-flight. Passengers filmed on their phones as whispers spread. Daniel's face drained of color, but he still tried to smile, still trying to play the part of the confident millionaire. When the plane touched down, Daniel was escorted out by security officers. He didn't resist. For the first time in years, he felt the crushing weight of reality. Hartley watched from a distance, not angry, just deeply disappointed. Daniel paused, hoping someone might still believe the persona he created. But the world had already moved on. Inside a sterile interrogation room, Daniel finally told the truth. Not the rehearsed lies, not the polished backstory, the real version. A boy who grew up watching planes and believing luxury was for people richer, smarter, luckier than him. A young man who learned that doors stayed shut unless you pretended you had the key. A broken adult who fooled everyone, except himself. The investigators realized he hadn't just stolen money, or harmed anyone, only stolen moments of a life he desperately wanted. As he was led away, Daniel whispered, "Did I fool anyone?" The officer replied softly, "You fooled everyone. Except yourself." The narrator closes. Some people chase money. Some chase status. But Daniel chased validation. And when you pretend to be someone else for too long, you forget who you are. That was the tragedy of the fake VIP, not that he was exposed, but that he never believed the real him deserved to be seen.